anyway, it just brought up this tremendous shame. I was like, oh my God. Oh.
Hi, I'm Jeremiah. Welcome to the Wake Up Call podcast, where we talk all things sleep, wellness, and health. The Wake Up Call podcast is brought to you by Polysleep, the best memory foam mattress in Canada. Welcome again to the Wake Up Call. I'm with Dr. Lara Patriquin. Lara is a renowned coach in mindfulness. You really helped tremendous amount of people and organization improve their well-being as a whole. And you're also a physician. So thank you once again for joining me today. How are you doing?
I'm thrilled to be here. It's been so delightful, and I'm looking forward to our time together.
So for those who didn't have the chance to watch the entire first episode, could you please tell us and walk us through a little bit what you're doing in your day-to-day now, in your well-being practice, I should say?
I'm still a full-time radiologist at the University of Utah. But what I love to do is I love to come into companies and peer advisory groups, such as the one you're working in, and do two things for people, is explaining to them how their minds work. The mind is the operating system that takes in the outside world and creates thoughts and feelings. What's the quality of your life depend on? The quality of your thoughts and feelings. What is that program? What are the bugs in it? Because there's some real bugs in it.
Yeah.
But once we understand how it works and what the bugs are like, then we know what to do about it. And then I give 6 practices, and we do the practices together, that if we do those practices, and people feel the effects right away with these practices during that time together, it's really wonderful. But accumulated, a little bit of practice with these practices every day can really help move the needle on your well-being. Now, this has been demonstrated over the centuries, in spiritual practices, but also really been re-demonstrated in the last 50 years scientifically, now that we understand how the mind works, how the brain works, how these practices are affecting our well-being. And it's been shown through imaging studies, it's been shown through other scientific ways of looking at the mind. Like, the data is really strong on certain things that you can do in order to feel better in your day-to-day life. And so that's sort of my calling, is to go into different companies and I speak all over US and Canada, and different populations of people who may or may not be as open as the others, but to explain it to them in a way that they can relate to and be invited to practice, to do just a few things differently in order to improve their well-being.
And you've built an amazing system to test that out, which is a 21-day challenge.
That's right.
So and thank you for that. You gave the audience a chance to test it out.
That's right.
For those who did, during the first episode, I would like you to explain a little bit what they experienced.
So the people who do this, and I not for myself, I as I told you in the first episode, I come from a lot of humility and a lot of hardship on my own. I got involved with this because my negative thoughts and feelings were so bad that I wanted to quit my job. I wanted to stop being a mom. I wanted to stop being married. I wanted to just leave my life, essentially. And so I did these practices because I really needed to just start feeling better. It was getting to this point that was like, wow, this is kind of crazy. Kind of midlife crisis, really. And they were so helpful to me that I just feel so committed to letting people know that it's actually possible to feel a tremendously better. But it just takes a little bit of consistency. It takes the desire to do better, some understanding of how the mind works, and some consistency in your own practice. And so it's been demonstrated that the first 15 minutes of the day and the last 15 minutes of the day is the best time to rewire your subconscious for happiness. And these are the practices that we can do. And so I can go through the practices, right? So one of them is gratitude, right? So gratitude has been demonstrated to be as effective or more effective than Prozac or the other, they call them SSRIs. A good study has just recently demonstrated that. And so now therapists are sending their people back home with a gratitude journal, half a page of gratitude journaling. So in our practice, I put people together 2 by 2, and you text 3 things you're grateful for to your partner. They text you back. Now, the great thing about that is for a lot of people, it makes them uncomfortable. It certainly made me uncomfortable initially, but it's just like exercise. You're not going to get benefit if it's not uncomfortable, right? So you get over this tendency we have to constant negativity. We notice how much we bond over what's bad. Did you hear about the politician and the weather and this and that? And it seems like so normal to be like, oh, look what sucks kind of thing. Look what's bad, when then you start bonding over what's positive, after 21 days, you were telling me that you were like, oh my God, I got to know my friend in such a different way. I got to know what's really important to him, you know, and that's been my experience. I've got 4 partners now all over the world, all over the country. And I just get it, like that, you know, Danielle loves to spend time with her girls. Danielle's struggling with her ailing father, you know, and this person's doing that. And this is what's important, you know, and I always try to do these challenges with people who are different from me, you know. Sometimes I get these texts, I'm really happy for my truck. And part of me's like, I don't really get the truck part, but I love my car, you know? And so it's really focusing on what's going right. And that starts to change and rewire the part of our brain that's looking out for what we need to know, right? It's called the reticular activating system. So you tell it what you're looking for. Now, you're so busy being negative that the reticular activating system is like, oh yeah, let me go out and find all the negative things that you're obsessed with. So it'll show you that the traffic is too bad, and it'll show you that this is bad and that your sister's not acting like you want and your dad's doing this, and you know, and all of a sudden you've got this terrible life. But if you start to say, no, I want to see what's positive because I'm clearly interested in it, because I'm texting somebody about it or I'm writing about it before I go to bed, then it starts to see the positive things. And sometimes, man, I get hit over the head with what's positive. This morning, looking out, well, first of all, the sun came out. How wonderful!
Yes, that's a big positive.
But like, it's like, whoa, this coffee cup and this coffee, and then the smile, you know, on the guy in the metro after he gave me the card. I was like, in the metro. I mean, holy smokes, this thing. Somebody had the idea of digging underground so that we could use this thing. I mean, it's tremendous. And you just start going, like. It's like, sometimes I'm just like, I'm so lucky, you know? Let me tell you, I wasn't born, I was born like that, but that wasn't me 10 years ago, you know? I was the cynical, I'll tell you what's wrong, you know? Yeah. So that's the gratitude. And that's how that practice works. And so then we do meditation is another option. Meditation has all benefits, all kinds of benefits. I got into meditation because there was some studies demonstrating that you can change your brain in a way that you can see on an MRI machine.
Really? Yeah.
Initially, so in 2001 was the first time that an MRI machine was sensitive enough to pick up changes in the brain brought on by practice. So the initial people were practicing, adults learning how to play the piano. They saw that the motor cortex changed a little bit on those people, right? 20, 40 minutes a day for 8 weeks. Same thing they were London taxi cab drivers. Before GPS, they had to learn the whole map of London. You can imagine. So the Center for Spatial Resolution or you know, spatial awareness changed over that time. They imaged them before and after. I mean, it was a victory for neuroplasticity, which is the ability of the brain to change with practice, which was only a thing. It's only been a thing for about 50 years. Before that, we thought we couldn't learn anything new as an adult. Like I remember when I was a kid, it was like, true. You can't learn this new language when you're older. You can't learn, you know, now how many new operating systems have you know, we were learning a lot. So the brain can change through practice. So then the mindfulness community said, I feel like I'm using different parts of my brain when I meditate. As I've been a meditator during the day, I'm more present. I feel different. Am I using different parts of my brain now? And so they brought Tibetan monks and put them in the scanner, right? The University of Wisconsin. And that's the picture I saw that got me to meditation, right? And so as an imager, as a radiologist, I was like, well, there's a sign. I didn't believe in signs, but that was a big one. And so they saw that the monks, first of all, had a bigger prefrontal cortex, which means this is the executive function part. I call it the CEO of the brain. Strong CEO can take in all the signals from the whole company and make the best possible decision, right? You're listening to your janitors, you're listening to your VPs, you're listening to everybody, and you're strong enough to make the best possible. You're not swayed by one more than the other, right? You're a strong presence. Same thing, you've got a weak executive function, you're going to get swayed by the part of you that's angry. You're going to get swayed by the part of you that's hungry, right?
You're going to have this mood swing also that swings. People will tell you
that's
about.
Right, yeah. Right? That's right. So the monks had tremendous executive function, which also means that when they want to pay attention to something, they'll pay attention to what they tell themselves they need to pay attention to. They have a tremendous capacity to pay attention, which, interestingly, is highly correlated with well-being. You notice, if you're feeling well, you could pay attention. You pay attention, you're feeling well, right? It's one of those feedback loops. So then after that, they said, well, that's not of interest to me. I don't have 10,000 hours to go sit in a cave. So he did an experiment it was a kind of a tech company. They had a group of people meditating in the waiting group, and they compared their brains and saw similar changes after only 8 weeks of meditation. That got people's attention.
Yeah, 2 months is quite short.
Yeah, it's really quite short. Yeah, to actually see changes on the MRIs. And so that really kind of brought meditation back on the map. I mean, meditation's been around forever. And it was around again in the 60s and 70s, but now it kind of came back. And since then, when I started teaching maybe a few years after that. We didn't have the Calm app or Headspace or all these apps they have now. It's much more common now. But that's because the science is showing the benefit. We're so scientific based in North America. It's just how we are.
Yes.
I am. So that's kind of what got me going was the science behind that one. And since then, there's so many studies. You just have to Google that, and just like about 1,000, good quality studies that come out about every year on what the benefits of meditation are. It's why the military is doing it. That's where I was teaching. I started teaching in the military. And that's why people are picking it up, because it's showing also to reduce blood pressure, to reduce resting cortisol rates, to increase your telomeres. Your telomeres are the little caps at the end of your chromosomes. Longer telomeres correlate with a longer lifespan. Other things that have demonstrated to improve telomere length is strong relationships and physical exercise. There's a few others, but it's those sorts of things, right?
That's so interesting that you say that, because more and more people start to realize that what we call a blue zone is not about the zone itself geographically.
No.
It's about connection.
That's right.
It's about how happy people are in this area.
That's exactly right.
And that is in direct correlation with what you were just talking about.
You're exactly right. It's a culture. They say in the U.S., it's not just a food problem, it's a culture problem.
Yeah.
Right? So these places have great cultures. And part of what's good about their culture is that they walk everywhere and they connect with people. All of those places, the connection between people, that's a non-variable. They all have it. Then there's other things, dietary things.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Do all of it. I'm like, do it all,
One that struck me that I would like your opinion on, because that's going to be my next question. So I'm going to throw it out right away.
Yeah.
A lot of people tend to say, oh, I feel tired.
Yes.
I slept 12 hours, but I feel tired.
Yeah.
And in this case, I know breathing techniques have a massive impact. And also, if you could expand upon the fact that some people feel tired, even though they slept 12 hours,
12
right?
hours.
What's happening?
Absolutely. There are a few variables. And I certainly know for myself that there's been times that I've slept a lot and felt tired, and not slept that much and felt okay. So how I see it is our fatigue isn't just what we've done physically, Most of our fatigue now is mental fatigue.
Yes.
We have a tendency to involve with, pay attention to, get wrapped up in negative thought trains. Okay? So what's a negative thought train? So the first thought might be, I've got a meeting with the client later. We're going to discuss payment options and why the payments haven't been coming in like they should. Okay? First thought. And this is not about becoming a lump on a log. I'm going to forget all my thoughts. No, we write it down. Great. But then what could be the next thought? Potentially could be, I bet you he's going to say this. And I should have said this, and I should have put this in the contract, and he should have done this, and I shouldn't have done this, and no. And then the mind will just go on and on and on and weave a story. The mind loves to weave a story because the mind is trying to get you out of that discomfort. Okay, so the emotion comes up of discomfort. I don't know how this is going to go. We don't like that feeling. We're allergic to our feelings. We go that, I don't like that feeling because it feels out of control. Right? So instead of just observing that feeling coming through my experience, my mind goes, emergency, there's a feeling I don't like. Let me get out of it. How does it do it? It spins all those thoughts. And then we just get absorbed in those thoughts. Not one of those thoughts is going to bring us home. Not one of those thoughts is going to go, oh, that's what it is. I can rest easy now. No, we start getting wrapped up like that. We're going to be wrapped up until the time of the meeting, and that's what happens when we wake up at night. You wake up at 3 a.m. You don't go, oh, let me just go into my thought loops. And then the answer comes and you're like, oh, that's it. I'm going to go back to sleep now. No, it ends at the bar. It ends at the fridge. It ends at the TV. Yeah. Or when you're finally just so exhausted, you go back to sleep, right? We have this tendency to be absorbed with and be interested in all of these negative thought loops because nobody ever told us that most of what we think is junk. 80-90% of what we think has no value to us.
How many thoughts do we have on a daily basis?
So, yeah, the research says different things, but the average number of people seem to talk about 50,000, right? And at least 40,000 of those are not helpful. That if you didn't have them, you'd probably be better off. You would be better off. And that's also where the gratitude comes in. I tell people, what if you replaced every one of those 40,000 repetitive, mechanical, unhelpful thoughts with thank you? Would you lose out in life? As it turns out, no. Because those thoughts, every thought you have has an associated reaction in your body. So I have a thought, oh my God, it's not going to go well. What's the physiology in my body? Cortisol, adrenaline. Cortisol, adrenaline, right? Cortisol, the aging hormone, right?
That's true.
Not good. It puts calcium on our arteries, right? It increases our blood pressure. It decreases our immunity, right? Because it's getting ready for you to go out and run and hit and hide, right? But the problem is we're not running, hitting, and hiding.
It even decreases, I think, testosterone production in males.
100%,
right?
Yeah. It messes up all those hormones, right? But we're not going out and running. We're not actually getting ourselves ready.
There's no lion behind us.
There's no lion behind us. There's no one we're going to go need to punch. We're actually just sitting on our computers going like this, This is where physical exercise can be so helpful in those moments because at least then you can deplete it. The exercise sort of depletes the cortisol. But then we get these sort of up and up levels of cortisol, and so we're constantly feeling on edge. And when your levels of cortisol are high, you don't feel rested even if you sleep. Cortisol is supposed to make you feel bad. Why? Because if you're running, I run a lot and I've been attacked by dogs a couple of times. If I'm running, I'm in la la land. I'm like, oh, life is so beautiful. I love this. I love this. I love this. And a dog comes after me. It wants me to pay attention to the dog and not into the beautiful trees. Mm-hmm. So it feels bad. So it gets my attention by feeling bad, right? So cortisol feels bad. So when it comes up, and it comes up every time I have a negative thought, it feels bad.
Yeah.
And then we go, oh, well, how can I feel better? Well, let me have a little
sip here, let me chocolate here.
Let me chocolate, or let me, most of the time it's let me just at least divert myself and do something else. That's why we get on our phones.
Yeah.
It may even be why we call somebody up, which I love. I love we call somebody up, but not at the expense of just letting the feelings come and go. Because what about this for a different scenario? You're going into the meeting. Mm-hmm. It's a big guy, right? It's a big client. You don't know how it's going to go. And if it doesn't go well, you're going to suffer. And he's telling you he doesn't want to pay you. And you're like, oh man, what if you could just feel that sense of out of controlness, be a witness to it, allow it to come in, allow it to go, because it's never permanent. How long does see if you remember, how long does an emotion last?
A couple of seconds.
Yeah, typically less than 90 seconds, often much shorter than that. Yeah.
I mean, road rage is a great example.
That's right.
That feeling of anger.
That's right.
And then
yeah.
It goes away.
Yeah, so you're going down to Kerry and you've got your hands on the wheel, someone cuts you off.
Yes.
But that's natural for that anger and fear to come up. But can I work on not closing when it happens? And this is probably the most important practice, is in the moment when I feel an uncomfortable emotion, can I stay open? Can I not close? Can I not brace myself? Because we go, oh no, I don't want that feeling. I don't want to have road rage again. I told people I don't have road rage again, right? Can I just open to the road rage? Because when I'm open, it comes and it goes.
Yeah.
But we have so many thoughts about our feelings. Okay, so for me, I'm prone to jealousy. I don't like the fact that I get jealous. So jealousy comes, And I'm like, oh, I shouldn't be jealous. So I like brace. Then I overthink. What do I think? Oh yeah, maybe if I go get real skinny, I'll feel good about myself. Or maybe if I change my face, or, you know, what if I just got really good at just saying, oh, there's jealousy. It's normal. It's my programming. There must be some utility to it at some point. Can I just open and let it come and go? That's probably practice numero uno. That's like pro tip right there, right? If we can get to that point, and that's when the 21-day challenge, my meditations start basic, but in the end, the goal is to be able to be with a feeling and not close.
To be a passenger next to these emotions.
That's right.
And to let them
just
pass by.
That's right. To be the witness. That's what they call the witness, right? Can I just watch it go by? And I notice when I do that, a higher intelligence comes in and knows what to do. You know, I notice when I do that, it's like a crazy wisdom, you know, and I suffered jealousy intensely. I don't know if it's because I had a perfect older sister or what, but like I would often feel, oh, you know, and finally it came to a point actually in Quebec City last year. I was so jealous. And then I was just like, let it be. Let the jealousy be. Don't close. Just let it be. It's just there. And I was just like, and, you know, does it feel great to feel that jealousy? No. But it's not, like they say in French, c'est pas la fin du monde, you know? It's like, I've been through worse. And literally in that moment, I just like, I'm open to you, jealousy. I'm not going to close. I'm not going to resist. I'm not going to get on my phone. I'm not going to drink. Just going to let it come and go. And literally since that moment, it hasn't come back, you know? And so, and sometimes it takes more than one time, but every time we can do that, it's less and less and less, you know? You know, I got back into that same situation where I felt so jealous and I was like, it was gone, you know? I mean, that was profound, you know? But it's really, that really is the highest spiritual practice, is to be able to allow a feeling to come and go without resisting. Because the moment we resist, we get a thought spike. So next time you get a thought spike, go, what is it that I'm unwilling to feel? That's how it works, right? Because most of the stuff we have is so repetitive, our thoughts.
It is.
Right? So I've gotten off track. We forgot about the other practices. Should we share those now?
Breathing. I think breathing. I love breathing. The breathing technique is.
That's right. Yeah. So we do a breathing technique called Wim Hof. It's, you know, he's packaged it for modern times, but it's a similar breathing that's been done for over the centuries, you know? So what I like about him is he's all over YouTube. You just plug the YouTube in and you just follow his breathing technique. A lot of science behind that. In fact, Stanford was very interested in his body because his immunity is...
Oh, it's pretty amazing.
It's amazing. Yeah. He's incredibly what he can do for his immunity. And interestingly, he has a twin brother, identical twin.
Really? I was not aware of that.
Yeah, and he got to this stuff late in life. So I don't know how long it's been, but it was definitely in the middle age for him. Because he said I had a little bit of a like, whoa, I'm not happy. You know, I think he had a death in the family and he was just like, wow, what gives? Why am I so blessed to be, you know, healthy and a good job, being money or whatever, you know, everything was all right. And both he and his brother were like sort of discontent. And so he started, his basic premise is we don't challenge our bodies enough. So he does cold showers, cold plunging, which I recommend.
I recommend plunging before shower. I personally find shower much harder.
Showering, I know. Showering's harder.
It's running water.
I know.
Oh,
I don't have a plunge here. I took a cold shower this morning and it's really unpleasant. I'm not going to lie. But, you know, some people, I know it's a real boost. It's amazing. So that's one thing that we can do. And then it's breathing. So he does this breathing technique. So that's something else I invite people to do, right? So there's breathing, meditation, the gratitude we do with the texts. And then there's service, which is doing kind things for people on purpose without expectation in return. And what that does, and the science behind that basically says that when we do things for other people, when we go out to try to be compassionate to people, to improve people's lives without wanting recognition for it, it increases our level of oxytocin. Oxytocin is the bomb hormone. This is the most amazing thing. It's sort of the antidote to cortisol. It just wipes cortisol right out of the way. So women, when they have babies and they're nursing, massive doses of oxytocin. And that's what gets them through that incredibly difficult time.
Yeah.
Nobody else could ever treat a person like that baby treats their moms, wake them up 5-6 times a night, poop and pee all over them. You know, I mean, it's tough. But what gets us through it is this massive doses of oxytocin. Dads also get it, right? We get it when we dance with people. We get it when we connect with people. So it's the social connection hormone. It's wonderful, right? Also goes back to what we've been talking about. Since we've been on our phones, we get less of it, right? Because you need to, that social connection. So I ask people to either write letters of appreciation to people in their companies and their families. And oxytocin gets produced, but only if it's uncomfortable. So again, this thing, you need to be uncomfortable to get benefit, right? I took a class. I had to write little cards for people, put little hearts on and this sort of thing, staple money onto it, and then either go up to people and give it to them or leave it where they wouldn't find it. And I was like, no way. I'm not doing that. That's crazy, And so my teacher's like, oh, look, it's making you uncomfortable. This is really going to work. I was like, oh my God. So I did. The first one I threw down was in a yoga studio. I was in the locker room. Open. Everybody has got these open bags, So I just put it in the bag. As I'm doing it, the woman comes out of the bathrooms.
No way.
I'm like, I felt, honestly, literally, it reminded me when I was 2 years in second grade, and the teacher opened my desk and found all these disgusting milk cartons of, gross milk that I was too embarrassed to move, right? I don't know, did you get the milk? You probably didn't grow up with the milk. Here, we grew up with milk cartons every day. So I had all these old milk cartons. Anyway, it just brought up this tremendous shame, I was like, oh my God. Oh. Anyways, we go into the studio. Her mat is beside mine, as it turns out. And I'm like, I'm being punished. But she's talking to her friend. And I'm like listening. And she's like, I think God loves me. Somebody put money in my bag. I think this means that my luck is changing, that everything's going to go get better. I feel like a bright ray of sunshine has entered my life. Like she was so happy, And I'm like this, like I was so excited, I was so excited.
And it was your mind basically again, playing trick. 100%. Yeah.
So then I just started doing to everybody. I would leave it on ambulances at night. I often finish work at midnight or so. Yeah. I used to leave thinking, oh my God, I'm the only one working, pity party for Lara, But then I was like, oh, I got to leave these notes. So I would wait for the ambulance drivers to leave and to go into the hospital with the patient. And I would come running up and put little cards on both sides. They always work in twos, And so I'm leaving the little cards with enough money for breakfast, And then I would run away. And sometimes I would wait for them to come out, And it was this whole like serendipitous, funny life that I would never have done something like that in usual times, And maybe also because it was during COVID, it all seemed to jive, And then I would give it to, there was a lot of more security detail in the store. So I'd bring it up to the policeman or I'd give it to nurses, Like it just changed my life. It was crazy. Now if I go to a new city or something I'm nervous about, I'll take some money out, write the cards, and I'm still feeling like you are the biggest loser around, Lara. I still feel the discomfort. But it always helps, And my residents know that if I'm in a bad mood, I'm like, there better be somebody I can buy lunch for in the cafeteria. And I run down and I'm like, I'm buying you lunch, And I'm not doing this to sort of virtue signal. I'm doing this to really let you know that that's also a whole path right there of liberation. Because for those moments, you forget there's a you. You forget there's Lara, who's got this and who's got that and this got this story and this thing and whose sink isn't working and who feels too fat. And there's all the stories, that we attach to ourselves. We can do things to liberate ourselves from that identity. It's just by being goofy and silly and sweet. It's like, let's do more of that, Let's do more of that.
It's almost as if you have an opportunity for a short period of time to, they say, look at the bigger picture.
That's right.
You're outside of your own story, your own path.
That's exactly right. And it's, it cost me $30 a day. I'm like, okay, I'll stop getting Starbucks and I'll bring my lunch. And so like the more I can do that, every week I make a lasagna for charity. And every week I try to invite somebody new to my house to do it. And I'm always embarrassed to ask. I actually have a lot of social phobia. Like I'm afraid people will say no. Well, like, that's stupid, you know?
Yeah.
So I travel around the country and I say to people, when you come to Salt Lake, come and we'll make lasagna. And then when they do come, it feels awkward.
It does.
I'm
probably.
like, who is coming? You know, and then my husband's like, who's coming? And, you know, and we're like, and I'm like, ugh. But then they come and we're human beings helping somebody else. And it's always great, you know? And it just proves to us that we got to get out of this routine.
Yeah.
I'm trying not to swear as much these days, but same shit, different day, you know? It's
funny because I know I've had the chance to meet you a couple of times, and you were saying that's one of your struggle. And I was like, really? I don't picture Dr. Lara swearing that much.
Oh boy, I got a mouth. Well, I've had an interesting background, as you know.
Mm-hmm. Funny enough that we're talking about this subject, these 40,000 negative thoughts, do you think, because we're more and more conscious about that as a society, but we seem to stray on the complete opposite path. If I look at social media, I can trade the algorithm as much as I want. I'm gonna see more negative than positive.
Yeah.
What's going on with this as a society, right? As a society, what's going on?
With the social media and all of that, you know, it's an industry. It's an industry that understands the mind way better than I understand the mind. You know, there's a movie called The Social Dilemma. The Social Dilemma, yeah. And it showed, you know, that there was a class at Stanford that basically showed how do you get people addicted? How do you get people to want more and want more? And all the heads of YouTube and Facebook and Instagram were all there. So they get money when they get your attention. Their first priority is to their shareholders, not to your mental well-being.
True.
We got to take this really seriously, right? There's a monetary value to your attention, and they'll get it any way they want. And in that movie, they really show you how it is that they do that they know how to time. Oh, he hasn't been on, and he hasn't inquired with this person who was clearly his girlfriend at one point, but now they're not talking anymore. This algorithm understands all that. It understands it so well. And with AI, it's going to be even worse.
Yeah.
And we've seen the effects, and now the science is coming out. There's so much data showing us how negative it is. But the problem is that it gives us just enough, I call it cheap dopamine. It's cheap dopamine. And it feels better to do that than it does to initially settle into our minds. When we stop and meditate, most people don't want to, because the barrier is there's a big cloud of all of our negative thoughts and feelings that we kind of have to work through, right? It's easier to instead just forget about it and go on social media or go on even just Angry Birds or whatever game of choice you have, you know? Yeah. There's a huge opportunity cost there that the mind, first of all, needs rest. It needs to, you know, the mind is really much more like, it's like lungs, really. It's like we need to breathe in and breathe out. We need our thoughts and feelings to come and go. We need that natural cycle of having a lot of thoughts and emotions and then periods of letting all that go, which we would naturally get if we were spending all this time in nature. You know, we don't have to tell the farmers and the people who still have that old-fashioned way of living to meditate. They're meditating all day when they're in the fields, right? You're meditating all day when you're kneading dough or when you're you know, planting tomatoes.
Yeah, because you're alone with your mind.
You're alone with your mind and you're in the physical world. You know, it's not really a problem. So there's this natural times of the day where you should be into thought and into emotion and really identifying with your thoughts and your feelings and being in that world. Your attention is very, you know, my whole world right now is just going to be my day job, radiology. I'm just going to think about that. Perfect. But then I also need time where I have an expanded view where I can just be, right? Where I can just be myself, clear my mind, let things settle, right? But that settling process initially can be, you know, unpleasant. Some people say my mind is a bad neighborhood that I don't want to go to alone, you know? So it's easier to distract ourselves.
Yeah.
It's easier to distract ourselves with this thing that's so easy that so gets it.
Like you said, it's instant dopamine.
And it gets it. They know this. They know this more intimately. Like these things know us better than our spouses do, right? We've shown that. And really, the proof is in the pudding. The school districts in Palo Alto, where all these people live, those schools do not allow telephones. Those programmers do not let their children on their phones. They go through this in the movie. You can see that. So that's proof enough that this is a very caustic environment that doesn't have our best interest at heart. In fact, there's actually, for us to all be wise and live at a high level of courage, acceptance, and peace, it's probably bad for business. Because when I'm at my wisest self, I'm not going to go out and buy, stuff. I'm not going to make crazy voting decisions. I'm going to be, the system doesn't want us to be at our absolute best. The system, it works better for them that we're feeling kind of like, oh, I don't feel right. What can I do? Oh, yeah, I'll buy this. I'll buy that, And it was so easy just to buy this and buy that, So it is much harder than it used to be. Right? When I grew up, we had the Sears catalog, and my parents told us that they didn't deliver to us. So we could just look at the Sears catalog, and that was it, And so it's harder now. There's no doubt it's harder, and the kids are raised on it. I mean, I don't think it's something that we can take seriously enough.
So we need to better equip ourselves to be able to counterbalance that.
We just need to do things.
Like you said, it's one of the core principles of what marketing is.
Yeah.
What they call the frequency cap. Mm-hmm. You know that after X amount of impression, your brand's going to be recognized.
That's right.
And like you said, a lot of companies...
Marketing on steroids.
They don't even think about the negative aspect these have. Because the value are not to help
That's right.
the next person, but more to take profit off of that. Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, we're starting, in a way, we're starting to get smart about it. Like certain school districts aren't allowing it. Mm-hmm. Parents are wisening up to it.
Yes.
But certainly not, not enough. It's still a massive problem that's just, I think, going to get, I can't forecast what's going to happen, but and all we can do is to give the example of, they're like, oh, my kids are on the phone too much. I'm like, well, how much are you on the phone?
Yeah.
Is your phone in your bedroom? Do you wake up? Are you ever on your phone when your kids are around? The best thing for us to do is to give an example of a life without it, with happiness without it. And, and that's hard sometimes for us because it is easier when they're on their phones.
It is.
It's easier when he's on his phone, but we're in the living room and occasionally we'll have a laugh. But if you think about your own childhood of the memories that give you fulfillment and a sense of peace, like for us, it was like, we played our violins and read books. I sound so old all of a sudden, but being in the world, being in the experience of living is what nourishes us. And we cannot get that feeling from the phone.
And like you said, already just naturally, our generation got deprived of that connection with our own mind fairly quickly. So I can imagine this happening even faster nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
absolutely. At least we had some years where we didn't have it.
Yes.
I didn't have it as a teenager, thank goodness. I probably wouldn't be successful now if I'd had it as a teenager because I would have become so identified with the brand of bad girl Lara. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it would have just been so hard to change because it would have been this whole thing, Instagram Lara, whatever, like it would have been much more hard to change my life. And I feel for that generation that's brought.
So as a parent, would something like the 21-day challenge could be something they start with their own children?
Certainly. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So practical things, keep it practical. Get it out of the bedroom, right? Charge it in the bathroom or your closet or downstairs. You can use your watch as an alarm clock, right? The watch, if you put it on its side, becomes an alarm clock. I found that out. Or you can buy an alarm clock on Amazon, $10. I'll buy you one if you call me. They still do it. Yeah. Do that. No, just be very strict with yourself. No phones at dinner, no phones until the and then make that solid.
Go for a walk with your kids.
Golly.
Talk. Connect.
Go for a walk every night, And I don't say any of this with any kind of judgment because I get addicted myself, like it's so ubiquitous. But we have to see. And then honestly, the other thing is once we start to become aware of our true nature through the practices, then it becomes like, oh, yes, I can't wait, right?
We tasted
it. So then it becomes like, oh, if I don't do it, then I don't feel right. It becomes like brushing your teeth, right? You wouldn't leave the house before brushing your teeth. If I get up and I'm in a hurry I didn't get my meditation time and I didn't get my little routine in, I feel it. And so I'll not do it too often. I'll always schedule as much as I can that I have those 15 minutes. And so I'll go to bed earlier. I'll just do everything I can to make sure I have that because I know I don't feel the same way, you know? So it's not like it's hard all the time. It gets much, much easier. And if you ask people who have these practices, you know, they don't say, oh, I have to meditate or I have to do this and that. They're like, oh, I get to, you know? And the joy factor keeps you going. That's why I hope people do it, because sometimes it can take up to 21 days for that to kick in.
Yeah.
In my estimation, it's typically after 7 or 8 days,
Took
you
a week for me
start to see
the
benefit.
difference. Yeah.
You start to see benefit in all of
and
the
by
practices.
the way, we have a link in the description if people would like to try it.
There's another opportunity. Yeah. So what that will look like is there'll be a link for a PDF of this book. You can print it out and use it as a journal. You can use a journal of your own if journaling is one of the things, and explanations of the different practices, and a daily email that has a new guided meditation every day. It is ironic that I send it on the phone, but I haven't found a better system. No. So yeah, that's an opportunity to just see if you know, we've done the experiment scientifically, we've done it over the ages in spiritual practice. Can it work for me? You know, and what can I do to feel better and just to touch into who we truly are? You know, my teacher says that we are peace and joy is our true nature, and we share that nature with everything and everyone. And I was like, wow.
Do you think we just took it for granted and lost it, or just forgot about it as a society and just focused so much on the stress?
First of all, I think that how we become so stressed out is a natural byproduct of our survival. So I think we probably had this process going in the year 0 or the year 500 or whatever. And I think honestly, it's the game. It's the game. We're born with this beautiful nature. We needed to do something else for a little while to be safe. The magic of life happens when we realize that and we reverse that. Mm-hmm. It's the game of life right there. Like, it's the invitation. And people accept the invitation or they don't. Yeah. Right. And the people who do, and that's what's like, that's where this internet thing is pretty cool, is that people who do, you can access how they do it and what they've done and their joy in a way that's like humbling every day, you know?
The information is there. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, there's Rupert Spira, Michael Singer, Byron Katie, Muji. There's these teachers out there that I'm like, oh, thank you for reminding me, because it's so easy to forget. We've so entrained ourselves. It's physiology, really, you know. It's, as I said, the phones throw gas on the whole thing, but it's been that's been how we've been since forever, you know. So it's entirely normal that we forget our true nature, but it becomes painful after a while. That's what a midlife crisis is.
And just like how important sleeping a good amount of time, eating properly is, I really invite anybody and everybody who look at this today to invest 15, 30 minutes of their time, download the challenge.
Yeah.
If you're not comfortable doing everything, do as much as you feel comfortable, you will notice a difference.
Yeah.
You'll notice a difference.
You will. Yeah.
Dr. Lara, thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
For all this amazing knowledge. If people would like to have more information about, or maybe some CEOs that watching the podcast would like to reach out to you, what is the best way to get in touch with you?
So there'll be a link to my website. It's Thinking 2.0, the letter 2, POINTO. And then you can see my information. All my information is there. Yeah. I love talking about this more than anything, as you can tell. So if anybody has any questions or anything, just reach out to me.
Thank you so much once again.
I appreciate you so much
for being with us today. And have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the Wake Up Call. If you like what you heard today, do not forget to rate, follow, subscribe, or perhaps leave a comment below. A new episode of the Wake Up Call drops on the 3rd Wednesday every month. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss a single episode. For all of us here at the Polysleep studio, I'm Jeremiah Curvers. Until next time.